Welcome, everyone, to DCT Talks. I'm Stephen Warren, the CTO of Data Center Dynamics, and it is an absolute pleasure to have someone who's incredibly busy all the time, Jim Simonelli, Senior Vice President and CTO. What a pleasure. You are in charge of the Secure Power Division at Schneider Electric. Gotta say, what a pleasure to have you with us at this time. And Jim, as DCT Talks, we always start out with the same thing, which is, can you tell us about your journey, your career journey, and especially how it's been with your role at Schneider Electric these days? This is wonderful news, and thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thanks, Stephen, and always great to talk with you as well. It's good to catch up as well. And yeah, it's quite an exciting time to be both CTO or just anything in the data center industry nowadays. But yeah, just kind of reflecting on your question and just kind of sharing a little bit. Look, if you cut me open inside, and please don't really do this, but you'll find an engineer inside, really a power electronics engineer. That's how I started my career. How I entered basically the industry from that angle. And it's from that angle around kind of understanding power electronics. UPSs was the core of my background, that I grew from there more into what I consider a system engineer and understanding the architectures, particularly as it related to data centers. I lived my career on the product side, so I've never been in owning or operating data centers, but spent a lot of times on that space like a lot of people have done as well. Look, I think if you think about, Schneider Electric, look, I came into Schneider Electric, much like many of the 150,000 employees came into Schneider Electric through acquisition in 2007. And largely, I came into the role, came into Schneider Electric as the CTO for the data center segment in the Secure Power Division. And just to clarify, when we think about this, Secure Power Division is the division that's responsible for things that are commonly found in data centers around UPSs, air conditioning, rack PDUs. But I also have the same hat for across all of Secure Power for the full scope of MV to LV, or as I like to sometimes call it, about grit to chip, and now chip to chiller is the scope. Overall, I've been doing this for a while now, and right now I'm going on probably 3 decades, but 2 decades at least inside Schneider Electric as CTO. And I also sometimes get the question, what the hell does a CTO do? And what's my role, here? And I tend to like to think about this as anyone that's in a CTO organization has kind of, I call it the hire and fire responsibility. And the hire and fire responsibility largely comes about with, I really kind of look out a bit into the future and think a bit around kind of what are the macro trends happening on industry? How does it relate to IT, because particularly around servers and chips in the technology to deliver on that those macro trends, particularly as they relate to digital. And then I think about what does the infrastructure in a data center need to look like to support that, and that guides kind of where we need to be inside Schneider Electric in the, say, 3-year plus horizon. So I usually look out a little bit towards the horizon and think about kind of where we need to be as Schneider Electric to serve this business overall, and something I really enjoy doing. And I like to say that I still have my job, so I must have been doing something right for the past 3 years or so. But yeah, it's interesting. And Stephen, just to augment a bit here, is that look, having been in the data center space, it really has been quite a ride. I mean, seeing the .com, blades, ad options, cloud, and now edge and AI are all in front of us right now. It's not as if this industry has been static over that period of time, and very much, enjoy both what I do, meeting customers, meeting a lot with understanding what's going on with the IT, and how does Schneider help actually, engage and drive the industry forward, and hopefully that also leads to Schneider having a strong position moving forward. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Well, I do appreciate you getting into what does a CTO do, because it's so critical these days. And you're right. I mean, you've seen it all, my friend. I mean, major changes from the .com through to the cloud, through to now even AI and ML. I mean, the ecosystem has radically changed, Jim, and that's why I want to bring the next question. You kind of set it up, and that is, what are the top challenges your customers come across when they're trying to deal with this AI strategy, this entire ecosystem, this whole system. How do they even cool it? How do they power it? So right then and there, what are the challenges you're seeing? Because I got to say, Schneider Electric is one of the greatest at this, helping us.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. And yeah, I'm sort of your straight man, even though we to be honest, we haven't rehearsed this, but it's a nice setup as well in the sense that look, that's how I think about this. And you brought up the interesting word of ecosystem, which implies that it's not just about one thing. And I think that's probably the most interesting challenge that we think about in the industry today is that it's not static, and particularly on this AI front, which I'll dig a little bit deeper into right now. It is around, we're building bigger, we're building faster, and we're trying to build more sustainably than we've ever done before. And to do that, everything is connected. You really need to understand the full powertrain, right from the utility to MV, HV to MV, all the way down to the chip level powering, and all the way from getting the fast moving molecules of heat all the way out to the outside air as well. Understanding that full system coupled with the software and services to deploy that anywhere on the planet at scale is how we're kind of shaping up Schneider to serve the industry across that in general. But it's just been on an amplified mode, I would say, for the past 3 years or so. And yeah, I'd love to dig a little bit deeper also into the challenges that we're hearing and kind of how we're maybe addressing that as well.
And let's get to those challenges because
Yeah.
they're key. I mean, you're bringing it up across the board. This is an entire power chain, and folks
Mm.
are dealing with so many different elements. Then throw in the edge to also.
Yeah.
So, Jim, walk us through some of those challenges if you could, and what you're hearing, you're seeing, because Schneider's done an amazing job here. And I'm gonna read this to you from The Economist, right from this year, January at the beginning of this year, and this is from Pungaj. And he said the key is the integration of grid to chip and chip to chiller, just like you said. And he's the head of that wonderful Schneider Electric facility in Italy. So you're
That's right.
doing it every day and you're helping us. So walk us through these challenges. And there you are at the top of The Economist telling us what we need to do. Help me here.
Yeah, and I think that's what we like to again share a bit is that we're probably one of the few companies that have both the breadth and the depth to go technically as well as understanding the market scale across that grid to chip and chip to chiller dimensions as well. And I think that's kind of it's both a bit of a brag but also a bit of a responsibility to ensure that how we tie all those pieces together and make sure that we're not just known as Schneider Electric, the UPS company, or the switchgear company, or the chiller plant in those dimensions. And I think if we kind of get back to why that's becoming even more important, for the first time, we are seeing a single workload drive a dramatic change in how data centers are built. And it really is coming into two dimensions. One is that when you think about AI, and AI is a big category, right? But you think about the most challenging part of AI, which is the training part, how to creating these large language models, which means packaging, GPUs as closely together and running them in very, very dense and running them at their peak performance. So therefore up to 1,000, even 1,500, even 2,000 watts per GPU in the future. There's really kind of these two dimensions. How do you get power into those racks, into those servers, and how do you get the heat out? And it's that heat out piece that I see is one of the bigger challenges, and it'll tie in a bit into sort of some of the things that we've done and acted on in the market as well. But the one thing I hear from our customers, aside from the power challenge, is actually on how do I cool my facilities. When we talk about our cooling challenge, there are probably two dimensions that come most to mind. The first is how to manage the uncertainty in the wide variation of cooling demands that are likely to be. It's going to be a mix of air and liquid cooling in the future. So I don't know how do I make investments to ensure that whatever I'm building today is actually going to be suitable for use in the future. I'm seeing things that are moving from rack densities that might be from today 8 to 10 kilowatts easily up to 30 kilowatts and now well above 100 kilowatts and above. You start hearing that. That's a hard cooling problem to plan for, and you have just that dimension of diversity to kind of manage. That's one thing in that space. And then the second is, is just kind of what do I do when liquid cooled servers showed up? show up at my site. I can't just plug them into an existing data center and they work. How do I support that? If I'm deploying liquid cooled servers, even if they might be, only at 20 kilowatts per server, not the less of stacking them up to 100 kilowatts per rack is how do I make that work? Those are by far the dominant conversations of change that has occurred versus say 5 years ago. The density of how to get power in, which we'll talk a little bit about, but more critical right now is how do we get the heat out, particularly when I have servers showing up that are actually liquid cooled by design.
So let's get into that. I mean, we're going towards major issues now. And we've seen the news everywhere. Power, power, power. Just at the same time, everything's going electric. It's just
Yeah.
unbelievable. I got to get right to this point. Who are Motivair? And why are they so important to your AI strategy at Schneider Electric? Because they're incredible as a company, but so are you. Can you give us a bit of a context to the relationship? Motivair is a wonderful company joining Schneider. This is great news for an industry that needs you now. So kind of walk us through this. What's with the relationship? How's it working? What's the key here?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, look, it's super excited to talk about Motivair and the recent acquisition, in that space. But if you step back a bit and you think about Schneider, in general, while we've had a strong reputation in both chillers and data center air cooling for many, many years, going back to our engagement with Uniflare, which we acquired back in 2010, very, very
Mhm.
strong. There are two facts that we need to face. The first is that we had a relatively low presence in North America. And second, we had, a tough decision to make around how to enter this new liquid cooling space. It's brand new in scale, and liquid cooling has been around for 30 years or so in many forms, but the scale of this is going on right now, and we needed to make decisions around, do we do this organically, or do we find a partner to engagement or an acquisition target in this space? And ideally both. And that's kind of where Motivair fits in. Motivair is, and I like to say, we're fortunate enough to have really brokered this acquisition agreement with Motivair because it really hits the sweet spot. One is that we just closed the deal. We're proud to say we closed. I think we're on day 10 of actual closing because we closed it on February 28th, and now they are officially part of the Schneider family. And look, what's very interesting about Motivair is really kind of in a few dimensions. So one is that they have a deep experience in liquid cooling. I'm going back 2012 or before. They have been cooling the supercomputers and some of the most dense and fastest supercomputers on the planet since at least 2012 and 2015 is really where they kind of really entered the market in what we would see today as the CDU space as well. So thousands of CDUs and deep experience of kind of what it takes, not just to create CDUs and also to manage the fact that, hey, when you think about liquid cooling, particularly this direct-to-chip liquid cooling form, which is by far the most common, there still is about 20% of the heat that has to get rejected in air. So they also have a complementary offer on rear door heat exchangers, which are also a very favorable way of capturing the heat that might be left over in air, and again, in a very narrow footprint. And that deep experience with that portfolio that is largely known in North America, by the way, so that's it. They certainly support the rest of the world, but that reputation in North America goes very deep. And they have a strong reputation with all the chip and server manufacturers, particularly in the high end, that it really is fantastic to bring not just the portfolio into Schneider Electric, but the deep know-how and relationships in that space as well. So that's really kind of hit the strategy, and also why Motivair is so important. It really kind of bolstered our position in that space, and also enabled us to have a very strong North America presence in this fast-scaling market that is still a wide open game that we expect to grow and grow and grow over the next several years, if not decades.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Years and decades. And thanks for being there. Look, I know we've got your time is precious. So,
Yeah.
with that, I've really got to get to the end of this, which is what's next, Jim? Are there
Yeah.
any other key milestones coming in 2025? Motivair is big news. I mean,
Yeah.
especially for those of us here in North America who are dealing with this issue, Can you talk about any of the highlight issues that are coming up in 2025 coming soon? Because this is great news for us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So look, as I said, we're on day 10 of the acquisition, but what we can expect in 2025 is surely to begin to support the scaling in North America, where there's always a presence. There is a very large demand, and we expect that more to happen, and also bringing that portfolio more to the rest of the world as well. That's probably the biggest things that you can look forward to, in 2025 on the cooling side. Thinking about on the rest of the portfolio, what we also are doing on the power side is really kind of looking to build on the early successes of our power density and sustainability new offer landscape with our GVXL UPS, which is half the footprint and twice the power as what we've been producing in the past, and also with the expansion of our SF6 free medium voltage switchgear as well. So those two things are things that we've already relaunched in 2024 in areas, but the idea is I expect those to build and grow in 2025. And I'll leave you just kind of one teaser here, which is beyond that, is that there's really some exciting things that are emerging around this ultra high dense compute platforms, both in liquid cooling and power that, look, I won't reveal right now on this call, but I want to say stay tuned because there's some exciting work coming as well in the future.
Well, I got to thank you for giving us a little bit of the inside there that it's coming because we need it now. Look, I'm sorry we've actually run out of time, Jim. I'm going to say thank you and to everybody at Schneider Electric for all you do and for this new AI ecosystem. And your new strategy is so critical to us. And with that, Jim Simonelli, we appreciate your time. Senior Vice President, CTO of Secure Power at Schneider Electric. Thank you, sir, for your time. And as always, to everyone at Schneider, you guys are the best.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks, everybody, as well, for hearing. Yeah.